Hey guys, Brad Gilmore here. Want to give a big shout out to our title sponsor, Walker Texas Lawyer. If you or a loved one have been injured in an accident, whether that be a car, truck, motorcycle accident, or some kind of other issue, hit up Walker Texas Lawyer at 713-552-1117 or walkertexaslawyer.com.
Oh, Brad, what have you done now?
Broadcasting live from Houston, Texas, and around the world. TV host, best-selling author, and radio personality Brad Gilmore brings you a collection of conversations with stars from movies.
Matthew McConaughey.
Brad Gilmore.
Mark Wahlberg.
Hey, how are you?
The legendary Mr. Christopher Lloyd. Christopher, how are we doing?
I'm doing good. Great introduction.
Television.
Jimmy Fallon joins us this morning. Jimmy, how you doing, my friend?
Good morning. Thank you so much, Brad, for having me. I appreciate this, bud.
Kelly Ripa.
Brad, thank you for having me.
Comedy.
Jay Leno joins us. Jay, how you doing?
Hey, Brad, what's going on?
Chris Tucker is in the building. Chris Tucker, good morning to you.
Hey, Brad. Good morning to you. How are you?
Gabriel Fluffy Iglesias.
Good morning.
Music.
Lola Monroe.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
The legendary frontman of AC/DC, Brian Johnson, joins us right now. Brian, how you doing?
Good morning, Brad. What looking at you, give me funny, lad.
Grammy Award winner Maya joins us.
How are you?
And more. This is The Collection. Now your host, The Boat.
And joining me right now on the line is someone who in my generation of people is one of the most iconic actors from that generation. He joins us now to talk about his new memoir called Home and Alone. He is the incomparable Daniel Stern. Daniel, how are you, sir?
Good, Brad. Thanks for having me on, man.
You look, first of all, congratulations on the book. I know I've seen you out there, doing the rounds and promoting it. What is the feedback you've been getting on this project?
Everybody hates it. Everybody absolutely hates it and hates me, which is very personal. I'm taking it no. It's been phenomenal. I'm the last guy in the world I ever expected to write a book. It was really a wonderful experience writing it, and the fact that people are getting, seeing a little bit of what I've gone through, but having a lot of laughs. I mean, I tried to keep it funny and tell a little bit of inside stories in my own little life here, and it's tough putting stuff out there, especially a personal story like that, and I've been quite pleased with the response.
Now, the impetus for writing this, or the origin story for your book was, and correct me if I'm wrong, there was a story that you have with, I believe it's Robert Redford, driving in a Porsche or something along those lines, and you thought it was an amusing anecdote, so you wrote it down and then realized, oh, this was really fun. Let me maybe continue doing this? Was that kind of how it started?
A little bit, yeah. Even before that, I kind of just wanted to regroup myself. I turned 65, if you can believe it. You've grown up. I mean, imagine how old you are then, Brad, if I'm 65. But, and I just went like, what the heck happened? This has been such an amazing ride. And I just started writing down what happened in my life. Like, okay, I was born in Philly, and then I moved there, and then this. And then once I sort of looked at that, my wife said, you could write a book out of that, because it seemed like chapter headings. And I said, well, I guess I could. And I wrote about my, shooting this movie I did with Redford, which I love, Milagro Beanfield War. Yeah, and Bob let me drive his Porsche one day down the hills of New Mexico, and I was racing in Bob's Porsche at 100 miles an hour. And when I wrote that story, I went, oh, that's kind of funny. He talked about, he also gave me like the best acting. He was the greatest director I've ever worked with, just about, and gave me such incredible acting advice. And so it kind of involved, that story involved funny and show business and personal growth. And I thought, okay, that could be readable to other people. And that did sort of get me started writing the book then.
If I can go back to Redford for a moment, because I'm fascinated by what you just said. He was one of the best directors you ever worked with, gave you great acting advice. Did it take you a second to kind of get over the aura that is Robert Redford, because he's one of the biggest movie stars of all time?
A little bit. Although he, once you get in the room, he's just a brilliant director. I'd actually met him before. I mean, and I write about this in the book too. I mean, one of the biggest things that happened as a young actor is he called me to go do a screen test for ordinary people. So I got flown out to Hollywood, and Redford took me, and coached me. And then they had a movie crew, and I did a screen test. And of course I didn't get it, because who else could have played that part but Tim Hutton in that movie, who was brilliant. So I'd already known him a little bit, and then he called me back to do Milagro. So he was a fan of mine, which was mind blowing. When you work with guys like that, I'm not that intimidated, but it's just, you got to be at your A game, because you're working with the best of the best of the best. And he really makes you, when you work with people like that, you better step up, because the expectations and the quality level is at the highest. And he proved why, because he's a genius director. And like I said, a brilliant, brilliant actor too.
Do you think that, because it's funny you say that, because I saw the new Costner movie that he's directed. I got a screening of it, and I got to talk to him yesterday. And to me, he's one of those great actor directors when you go Dances with Wolves or all the ones that he's done. Do you think that there's something in that to where an actor can make a great director because they understand the process on the other side? Is there something to that?
100%. 100%. I've directed a bunch. I directed on the Wonder Years and Rookie of the Year and television shows. And I do think I've learned that I have a language with other actors myself who kind of trust me that I've been up in front of the camera too. So I do think actors make terrific directors. And then if you can trust your crew and you've got a visual vision, that's the other element. But Redford had such experience in front of the camera. And again, he just, like, there's a story in the book, like, he got a little, he said, he challenged me one day. He said, do you know what lens we're shooting on right now? And I said, the lens? I said, no, I don't know. He said, you got to know what lens we're on. He said, if I'm on a big wide shot, you're going to be acting this scene a lot different than if I'm in a tight close-up of your face. He said, you got to be aware of the whole situation, not just learning your lines or feeling the moment, but like what's going on with the camera too. I mean, so he mentored me in that way of just understanding the whole, where you fit in as an actor in the whole process of filmmaking. And that was a brilliant perspective to get.
Because you were a stage actor, right? I mean, you were performing on stage for a long time before you went into films. Did you find that transition? Because again, when you're in the theater, you're acting to the last row. Motions are bigger, emotions are bigger. Right. And then when you're on film, the camera's right there. Was that a strange? I don't want to say strange, but how was that transition? I guess
it is. It's a totally different, a different style and a different skill set in a lot of ways. And I stumbled into my first movie, was Breaking Away, which was a really great part in a really great movie. And the thing about it that I've been watching in the movies, because I grew up, when I wanted to be an actor, it never even crossed my mind to be in the movies. I was in the high school play, and then I wanted to do more plays, and it was all about the theater. But that I could trick them in that I watched the other actors be naturalistic and just bring everything way down. And the first director I worked with, Peter Yates, was the master of subtlety. So I learned right away and just kind of caught on, oh, this is how we do it here. We don't perform, we just behave. We don't project, the microphone will pick it up, and you don't have to send your voice. So I had to get up to speed quickly, but I got it. I got the lesson pretty quickly too.
The book is called Home and Alone, a memoir. Daniel Stern joins us now. Now, when you're putting all these stories together and in writing the book, so I wrote a book myself, not to this degree, but about something different. But I found the process of writing so difficult, because I'm a collaborative person by nature. I like working with people. I like having a conversation. And when I was just me in front of a laptop hammering away at the keys, I found it frustrating at times. What were the emotions you went through in writing the book? Was it all fun, or did you find yourself challenged?
I thought it was all fun. I mean, again, the book is called Home and Alone. That's how I like to be. I like to be home and alone. And sitting, sitting in front of my computer and writing was I find that very creative. I mean, I also do a lot of sculptures. So I have an art studio that I'm in a lot of the time. I like to just create in my head, it's my hands, in my world. And so it was, it just kind of flowed out of me. I love the writing process, and then the editing process, and then the rewriting. Because I do live in my head a fair amount, and to put it out on paper was just kind of, I'm pretty well self-motivated. And if I hit a roadblock with the book, I went out to my sculpture studio and played with clay for the day and then came back to it. So I've become pretty adept at keeping myself going as a creator.
But I know, so you mentioned, you've directed a lot. So the term, picture locked, right? Everything's done. We're done with the edit. Yeah. We're putting it out there. For you, these stories, because they are so personal, they're your memories, they're, your life's work in a lot of ways, or stories from your life's work. Did you feel any, trepidation from saying, okay, these are the stories now. They're out there. They're permanent. These are how people are going to remember them and tell them forevermore. That's a very excellent point. And I'm so stupid that didn't hit me till after the book came out. I was like, oh yeah, people are going to read this. They're gonna know these stories, because it was such a personal thing. I was kind of just wanted to tell them to myself, to remember what happened. I've had so many brilliant and wonderful things happen in my life that it was as much for my great grandchildren who might see Home Alone in 2095 and say, who the heck was my great grandpa? But so it is kind of strange having the stories out there. The thing I find, like when you say just about being the picture being locked, the sculpture being done and in bronze, the book being finished, when I'm done with them, I move on. That's the thing. I like to go on to the next one. So I love talking about the book, but I'm actually in the middle of writing something else and another sculpture. So I always try to keep myself looking forward, because when I look back at the work, it is locked and it's kind of over for me in a weird way. Oh, I totally understand that. And if you look too much at it, you're going to be like, oh man, I could have done this, or I should have done that. And I don't know, you can get in your head. At least that's how I would do.
Absolutely. The funny thing was I did the audio book. And so the final act of writing the book was now, okay, Dan, you've written all this, you've edited it. Now you got to read it out loud to yourself in a room for 4 days. And then it's like, oh God, I said that. That's right. Why did I write it that way? So that really put it to bed for me.
Directing Rookie of the Year. I do want to ask you about this because, for me, coming up playing baseball, I don't think there was a kid out there who didn't wish that they tripped over, a glove or something and then woke up with this superpower after their arm was broken. I think that we would all have loved that. What was the appeal of that movie? Why'd you want to tell the story? Are you a baseball guy? I mean, where does that kind of come from?
Huge. I'm a huge baseball fan, grew up, playing. I unfortunately grew up in Washington, D.C. My team moved away when I was a kid, the Washington Senators, but I loved playing baseball. And then by the time I got to rookie, I was coaching my son's baseball team. And so I was coaching Little League, these kids. My son was Henry Rowengartner's age at the same time. And it was like when I got offered that movie to direct, it was just, I was working with all those little baseball kids who had that fantasy, and I had that fantasy as their baseball coach. Like, yeah, you guys are great and you can play, and so it fit right in where I was at that moment. It couldn't have hit me harder as the perfect movie to direct at the time.
I guess because if you live in that Little League world, you understand the baseball. I don't know, I think that if anybody has never played baseball, I think it was for me, such a formative thing, because you learn so much about teamwork and self-responsibility and all these things. And then looking back at it, I loved looking at the parents, because the parents were more in than we were.
Exactly. And that's what was so fun in that movie was you got the whole, again, with those kids, it's like, what would I loved when we got to have to write the scene, like, okay, Henry Rowengartner gets to had his first major league at bat, and so he gets on base, and he's got pitcher's got a big butt, bringing the kids game to the major league game and the major league game to the kids game, and it's all baseball, and it's all fun, and the real players are just grown-up kids who had the same dream. That whole society of baseball, it was really fun to tap into it.
Yeah, it's why the baseball movies, I think, they just make for such great films always, because it's just it's a kinetic force in baseball, and the culture around it. There's so many avenues you can go down.
Oh my God! Field of Dreams.
Yeah.
I saw Field of Dreams. I wept so loudly at the movie theater. I humiliated myself because I was crying so loud. It meant so much to me. And then I saw it again on a plane, and I thought, okay, I can watch it again. And I wept on the plane. The baseball movies and the parents and the dad and the history and all of it. It's a beautiful metaphor, because it's also a game that has so many subtleties and so much humanity in it. It's open ended, and it's very much a parallel of a life parable kind of thing. When you dive into that game.
You're absolutely right. And to share a story with you, I was on a flight to New York recently, and they were playing the Yogi Berra documentary, and I wept just watching a Yogi Berra documentary. So that's a true story.
It's embarrassing.
It is, but it isn't. When I think you talk about 2095, when your great grandkids are looking back and saying, "Oh, what is Home Alone?" and things of that nature, I mean this earnestly and honestly. I think that your performance in those two films is going to be regarded in the same way we talk about people like Harold Lloyd and Chaplin and the great physical comics of yesteryear today. I really believe this. My one question about this, because I'm sure you've been asked all types of things, but my one question about it is, I know it's a John Hughes script, so the script's tight. It's great. It's probably a shot for shot in there. I've read a lot of his scripts and know how he lays them out. However, to bring that physical comedy to life, it can be written on the page, but then you have to execute it. Can you talk to me about what was the process and the mentality of executing the physical comedy that was done to absolute perfection? And I think that what makes the movie so rewatchable is that physical comedy.
Yeah, it is. And it. I mean, like you said, it starts with John Hughes and writing it down, but bringing it to life. Freddie Heights was the stunt coordinator. Leon Delaney was my stuntman. Troy Brown was Joe Pesci's stuntman. Now, when you see it on the page, it's one thing. The first time I watched Leon, like I got to the scene where I slip on the top of the back steps, and then I slide down the steps and go into the basement or something. And so we're shooting that. That's the first time. And I watched Leon get up, throw himself up in the air, land on his back, slide down the stairs, and do it as you see it in the movie. He's doing the big stunts. And when I saw that, I went, "Oh, dude, this is how this is going to go." They're taking this. The stuntmen took it to a whole nother level, and then I realized, "Oh, okay, it's really balls out comedy here," and it just informed how I was going to do it. And suddenly, like my inner silliness came out and just was released in that moment. I mean, it was really an epiphanal moment of how to play that part. Watching Leon do it for me the first time, and then when they put the pads on me and said, "Okay, now you're going to slide down the rest of the stairs and jump in," I thought, "Okay," and I felt it right out of the gate. Like, I can do this big. I can do this funny. Yeah, just let that Chaplin inside me, who I love, the Stooges, Roadrunner cartoons, all of it, and it was such an opportunity, it just brought out a silly side in me. When my family saw it, they said, "Oh yeah, that's the stupid stuff you've been doing your whole life," and I got to tap into it. So it really it was a perfect match for my silliness too. But the stunt dudes, that's how that physical comedy, why it will last so long. Because of Troy and Leon, really.
Well, Daniel, it's been a pleasure talking to you. The book is called Home and Alone. I suggest everybody go out there and get it. And just thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me.
Hey, Brad, it's been a real treat. And thanks for all the insightful questions. It's been really fun talking with you.
All right. Thank you so much. Daniel Stern, everyone.